We're going to start off our sequence. This is our whole class in Sukhasana. We're going to peek at Warrior 3. So we're bringing the attention to the breath. We're going to walk one hand away, contracting the core, raise the other arm, coming into lateral flexion. We're pressing that hand away, come down, walk it away, place it down, and repeat on the other side. So we're just starting to warm up the spine and gently open up the sides of the body. We're going to keep the shoulders grounded down and laterally flex the neck and then rotate to the same side and come down. So we're really opening up and gently warming up all those neck muscles. Keeping nice length in the spine here. And working with the breath. Breathe into any spot that feels tight for you, and you can pause. And don't forget the front too. We always want to counter. If we do the back, we do the front, and vice versa. We're going to raise the arms, and as we twist, we're going to exhale and hook that hand on the knee. So we're grounding down there. We're keeping nice length in the neck here, pressing those shoulder blades down towards the hips. We're going to come up and back down. So we're opening up that back shoulder. So now we have laterally flexed the spine. Now we're warming up with some gentle twists, working with the breath, keeping nice length in the spine, nice straight back. We're going to bring the arms out and then forward. So now we're working to warm up flexion and extension of the spine because we want to warm up the spine in all the directions it can move. And we're going to repeat with the other arm underneath. Roll the shoulders down and back. We're going to come onto our backs and come into reclined extended hand to big toe. I'm going to use a strap here. So the strap goes around the ball of the foot. Remember to keep those shoulder blades plugged into the floor. So we're pulling the toes towards the kneecaps and the kneecaps up towards the hips on both legs. So the adductor of that leg that's on the mat is contracted because we don't want that thigh to just roll out. We're going to switch feet here. So we're warming up the hamstrings and the calves a little bit. We're engaging the shins. Remember to keep those shoulders plugged down into the mat. And contract the core a little bit. You might feel differences on each side. That's totally normal. Work with where you're at. We're going to bring the knees to the chest and then drop them to the side in a reclined twist here. So work with the breath again. We're dropping those ribs down with each exhale. Option to bring the head neutral or to either side. And we're going to switch sides here, dropping those legs down. Working with the breath. And noticing a difference in the sides and see where you're at and how it feels. And we can compare later in the class to see how you felt after we did some more poses. We're going to come into tabletop for just a minute here to transition to cat-cow. We're going to rock side to side just a little bit to help wake up those palms because you don't want to go into the tabletop position if your forearms are really not warmed up at all. So you want to open up the palms a little bit. So we're arching, really bringing those bottom ribs under and then dropping the belly, engaging the hips too. Here is with the sacrum. So we're going to bring the toes together, knees apart, wide, walk the hands out into a wide child's pose. Wide extended child's pose, And you have the option here. You can really start to ground down through those pinkies, really make it a little bit more active. And you might feel that all the way into that armpit area. And depending on how you choose to do the pose. Going to bring the knees together now. We're going to come onto our knees and roll the shoulders down and back. We're going to tuck the toes under just to kind of warm up the bottoms of the feet, that plantar fascia. We're going to engage the adductors of the hips here, engaging the core. We're lengthening down through the sacrum or the tailbone, and we're cactusing the arms. So this is a variation of camel. we're just wanting to open up that chest, so we're engaging the rhomboids, the middle trap area. We're going to come down, then we're going to come up onto our mat. We're going to line up the edge of the foot, the back foot, with the mat. We're going to come into a high lunge. So square the hips as much as you can. We're going to engage the glutes. We're going to engage the core because we're stretching the hip flexor, right? So we want to engage the opposing muscle group. We're warming up here, warming up the hips. And you can incorporate the arms if you choose. Remember to keep nice length in the neck. Don't crunch the neck. Now we're going to transition into pyramid. So keep the hips square. So through this pose, we're squaring the hips continuously. You can bring your hands down to your front thigh if that feels more comfortable. We're going to come into triangle now. Walk the hand down the shin, or you can be up higher if that feels better for you, but we're engaging the adductors of the hips here, the glutes, the core. We're going to shift into warrior two. So we bend the front knee, lengthen down through the whole entire spine, and we're pressing those hands down to keep the shoulders away from the ears. We will now rotate. We're in warrior one. Bring the hands down and come back into triangle. So remember to engage the glute on that back leg to keep your form so the hip doesn't pop out. We're going to come into revolve triangle. So the hips stay, top body goes forward. And as we rotate, we're working with the breath. You can use a block under that hand if you choose. So we're going to repeat on the other side. So we're coming into a high lunge here. And that front foot, we're going to ground down through the big toe joint. But we got our hip flexors a little bit active there. So they're active on the front flexed knee in the front, and they're stretching on the back. So you want to square the hips and then really suck the belly button towards the spine, and you'll get a better stretch. You can bring the arms up and straighten the knee, grab the hands behind the back, and keep squaring the hips as you bend forward into pyramid. Come out, send the back foot around, and then come into triangle here. Reaching that top hand so we're active all the way to the fingertips. I like this flow. It's a good warm up. We're going to bend the front knee, send the hands out, pressing those palms down, keep nice length in the neck, keep the shoulder blades away from the ears, rotate towards the front knee into warrior one. Bring the hands down and back into triangles. We're engaging the core. Next, we're going to come into revolved triangle. So we're going to come up, leave the hips where they are, bring the top body forward, and rotate around. And you can use a block on the hand that's on the floor if you need to. We're going to step the feet wide here. We're engaging through the arches of the feet. We're sealing off through the outside edges. We're engaging the quads so the kneecaps are pulled up. So we're activating those quad muscles. We're inhale. We're going to exhale and bend forward at the hip. So we're keeping a nice flat back here. And you can bring the hands to the feet, the ankles, the mat, whatever feels good. So we're going to rotate those legs out laterally, really grounding down here, really lengthening down through that tailbone or coccyx. Roll the shoulders down and back. We're engaging the core. And when you feel comfortable there, cactus the arms, spread the fingers wide. So we're opening up that lateral rotation in both the shoulder and the hip. And we're going to start, just come into a beginner tree. So we're going to roll the toes down on one foot and really start to ground down. So we're really engaging the core, trying to keep those hips square as you can. We're going to bring that other foot to the ankle, and then we're going to do just some rotation, just standing hip rotation, and we're including medial rotation here because warrior three, you have to medially rotate that hip. So you really want to make sure those are warmed up muscles too. So we're grounding down, start to engage the glute here as we lift coming into warrior three. pressing those palms down. Now there's a bunch of variations on the hands. I like that variation because you're pushing, so you're against imaginary floor, and somehow it's just more stabilizing for me personally. We're going to repeat on the other side here, starting with coming into a beginner's tree. So we're opening up that hip because the lateral rotators in this pose are going to have to stretch. So we want to make sure they're awake because they tend to be fairly tight on people. So we're going to tap the toe away, really try to ground down through the standing leg, lifting through the arch. Adductors of the hips are active on both sides. Now, sometimes right here is where it gets a little bit tricky for some people. If you try to get that back foot, that foot to immediately rotate, sometimes it throws you off. You can, of course, use a wall or come down onto blocks if that feels better. And you're trying to be straight from your heel to your head. We're going to come in, check in and mount in here. So we're grounding down through both feet, opening up the chest, spreading across the clavicles or collarbones, lengthening down. And then we're going to bring one arm up in lateral flexion here. So we're grounding down through the outside edge of that foot. We're engaging the glutes. We're engaging the core. Keeping length in the neck. We're going to keep that upper pinky rolled out because it creates a little more lateral rotation. So now we're going to counter. We've warmed up. Now we're going to kind of stretch everything out. So we're going to come into a wide leg forward fold here, and we're countering, right? Because we just really worked those glutes. We worked the hamstrings. So we want to cool them down appropriately. We're going to grab a block and come into hero's pose. And also we already have warmed up, right? The hip flexors, the quads, we stretched them, and then we engaged them. Now we're going to stretch them again. So we've tucked the tailbone just slightly, really lengthening down through the spine, trying to keep the lateral rotation as much as we can in the shoulders. We don't want to collapse, and we don't want to overextend our neck. So the other thing you want to do is watch this pose if you do have knee issues. You can, of course, use a higher block or a rolled towel between the knees. We're going to bring the knees apart, toes together, walk the hands away in a wide extended child's pose here. Releasing that lower back, stretching through the armpits if you choose to make this pose a little more active. Come up, we're going to go onto our backs and come back into our reclined twist. So bring the knees to the chest and then drop them to the side. Now you can notice too if you feel more of a stretch than in the beginning of the class. And see the difference. See if you kind of have woken up your muscles a little bit. Or maybe it feels better since you've warmed everything up and now we're cooling down. But balance poses are fun. They're good for the brain. They're good for the body. You can always modify if you need to. Bring the knees to the chest. And then we're going to come down, leaving all the natural curves in the spine into shavasana as we close our eyes and tune in again with the breath.